A lot of why young people have not really gotten into nature can be to do with upbringing and how or if our parents have got the chance to introduce us to the outdoors. For that reason, I'm chatting to my dad today to rekindle some memories of our family experience when we were growing up, if he showed us nature, and even his experience when he was a boy. Oh, and if I sound a bit different, you gotta understand I get a bit shy and quieter around my dad. But anyway, here's our discussion. Just to start off, I want to know, how is nature perceived in Pakistani culture?
Nice to be here. Nature in Pakistani culture, I don't think we think in Pakistan as nature as a separate thing. Pakistan is mainly a rural country. The vast majority of Pakistan is agricultural farming land. The biggest province in Pakistan is the Punjab, which is very much a kind of farming center of the Indian subcontinent, really. So I don't think the idea of nature being separate to how people live. I think people just live within nature and take it very much as a given. Get up when the sun rises in the morning, go to bed when the sun sets in the evening, growing most of their own food. So crops, seasonal crops, using bushes and firewood to fuel cooking utensils and heating and so on and so forth. Animals living on the yard with you, using cow dung, patting the cow dung to use fuel for fires. So the whole idea of the natural environment and yourself, very much in a country like Pakistan, is one and the same thing. I don't think it's considered as a separate thing, but as something that we live within.
Thank you for sharing. So when me and my siblings were growing up, how did you engage us in nature and why, if you did?
Well, I think living in countries like England, the nearest sometimes in urban environments that we have to nature is the parks. You know, the parks and our local parks and our local green spaces and common spaces are often the places where we can go to experience openness and nature. So from a very early age, we've always taken you to parks, always to parks. Whenever there was an opportunity, let's go to the park. And of course, parks were also fun places. You know, when you were younger, there was also swings and seesaws and roundabouts and climbing frames and boating lakes. So every opportunities that we had at weekends, at summer holidays, we'd always go to the park. So I think that you've always had, I've always done my best to make sure that you weren't just stuck in a house you know, inside a building, but every opportunity we had, we always tried to go out for walks as well. And yeah, so that's how I try to expose you to and of course, gardens. Wherever we lived, we tried to have a nice garden space, sometimes not as big as we would like, but also to spend time out in gardens. And as much as we can, particularly during the summer, to be outside, have barbecues outside and live outside. So therefore, you also always had a sense of outdoor spaces as being important.
So when I was actually younger, is there any like fond memories or things you remember about me in the outdoors when I would spend time with you? Because I know that when I was with my mum was a completely different thing. So with you, do you remember anything that?
Well, from an early day, you always loved the outdoors. There's plenty of fun memories, and you always loved the outdoors. And you'd always, and I think this is typical of most children, but definitely when I think about you, you'd be out there digging your finger into dirt and picking up things to eat, which I wasn't too, you know, as long as it wasn't poisonous or wasn't going to kill you, I wasn't too averse to that. And I think you always very much enjoyed, and still do now, of course, it's your passion, being outdoors, running around in parks. I remember, I recall a day when you said, let's go out berry picking when we used to live in Birmingham. And
Birmingham.
sorry, no, actually, when we used to live in London, in Sydenham, and let's go out and just look at the natural environment. So this wasn't even a berry picking place. It was just berries growing out in the wild. And I remember you and me went out for a long walk picking berries off the bushes and the trees. And you must have been, I don't know, 8 or 9 or 10 at the time, maybe even younger. So you always had a kind of insight that, hold on, these berries and these bushes and these trees, these are something that are actually quite interesting. Let me go out and see what they're all about. So you've always had a kind of passion for the outdoors and passion for living things. And you were always probably the most happiest when you were outdoors. And it kind of goes to show that those early memories played a part in shaping and informing the person that you are today and that you will become on this journey that you're on.
Thank you for sharing. I actually do remember that as well. When I said to you, let's go out and pick berries. I didn't know about foraging at that age, but I actually...
Foraging, that's the word.
Yeah.
Foraging. Yeah.
I didn't know about foraging at that age, but it was actually Auntie Sita. She had come down a week before that, and I saw her picking the berries. We was walking in Sydenham, walking in Sydenham, and then all of a sudden she started picking berries off the bush, and I was like, what the? I was thinking, what's she doing kind of thing? And then I was like, okay, like this must be a thing. And then she was eating it, and then little Zara was eating it, and I was thinking, rah, these lot, I'm thinking, rah, I didn't know nothing about that. So then I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do this with my dad now. I'm gonna go do this with my dad. So I told you about it, and I was like, Dad, let's go for a walk. And then me and you was picking the berries, and I think we freed some as well. We freed some of them, and we ate them. It was nice. I was like, rah, this is actually a thing.
That also reminds me of a time when I was in Pakistan, when I was younger in Pakistan, and one of my uncles took me out, and he was talking to me about what the different plants do. Natural remedies of the different. These are just plants growing on the street and growing on the side, on the hillsides, and so on and so forth. And we were on donkeys because we were out doing some chopping some produce, bringing it home, and we're on the donkeys. And he grabbed the branch as we were going by, and he pulled the branch off, and he broke it, and he started to clean his teeth. He started to clean his teeth with the branch, and I said, "What's going on?" He said, "Yeah, this is a natural teeth cleaning thing that we do here." So that's a very clear memory about how in Pakistan, and this question that you asked earlier on, how they really use the environment around them as part of their everyday existence, whether it's cleaning or eating or cooking or even medication and healing. That actually they're very, very familiar that this plant does this plant heals that, this plant can clean your teeth, we can do this with this plant, we cook with that plant. And it's almost not a separate thing, but something that they do just as part of their normal lifestyle. A lot of those things, of course, we've lost here in the urban West. So I'm so proud the fact that you're seeking to bring this back. Let's bring the natural healing back, and let's bring the natural remedies back and the natural way of living back. Particularly now, because in these times that we're living in, mental health, stress, depression, anxiety are at an all-time high. And what we also know is that the medications, the pharmaceutical medications that are being prescribed are often not the best way to heal people who are going through anxiety and hardship in their life. But I think the evidence is very clear that an engagement with the natural environment aids recovery, aids healing, also aids new type of insights into who you are and your place in the world. So I think that if there's ever a time to do this kind of raising awareness and engagement and propagation of the energy and power of the natural world, now's the time to do that. Now's the time to do that.
Thank you. So when you was younger, how did you engage with outdoors? Did you do anything extraordinary, or was it kind of similar to what you did with me and my siblings?
I think we were much more freer when we were younger. I think the whole idea of safety and public safety, which is very much a kind of population idea at the moment. You got to stay inside, you got to fear other people, you got to come in before dark. When we were younger, thinking back and recalling, there wasn't those same kind of security fears. So I remember being free. I remember going out to parks, going out to countryside, climbing trees, going to lakes, walking on along streams and rivers where we lived, and having a much more carefree lifestyle. You have to remember that when we were growing up, there was no such thing as social media. TV, when we were growing up, there was 3 channels: BBC One, BBC Two, and ITV. And these channels all finished at 11 o'clock at night. So after 11:30, there was no TV. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't think TV came on till about 9 o'clock in the morning. So therefore, there wasn't the distraction. There wasn't the distraction of TV. There was definitely not the distraction of social media. We used to have the old ancient dial phones and pay phones. So if you wanted to sneak out and make a phone call to your friend because your mum wouldn't let you use the phone at home, you'd have to take 2p coins and go out to the phone box and be feeding 2p coins in order to speak to your friends. So the whole idea of constant distraction, we didn't have when we were younger. So what was there to entertain us? Running around with your mates out in the park. So we spent loads of time growing up with our friends and out in the park, and I think spent more time out in the gardens, out in parks, out in the outdoors, running around, climbing trees, much more than I think a lot of the young people do today.
So right now, how do you engage with nature, if you engage with nature? Because I know you're a really busy person and you do a lot in the community, so how do you find that space for yourself to engage with nature now, especially with all the distractions you're saying and how the times have changed? And I know as well, you're very busy, as I've emphasized already, like you're so busy, like your life kind of revolves around work a lot of the time. So how do you find that space to engage with outdoors and nature?
I try to be a keen runner in spite of my bad knees. So most mornings I'm out running. And when I do run, I run out in the parks. I'm very blessed to be able to live close to Battersea Park, which is a 10-minute run from where I live. So every other day at least, I get up and I run around the park, 5K, and if my knees are up to it, sometimes 10K. I think the other day I even did 16K. So
better than me.
So I try to spend a lot of time doing that. And every opportunity I have, especially recently when the weather's been a bit better, I read and I read outside. I find Battersea Park's my nearest park, but also I have the York Garden Libraries and Shillington Park, which is about 5 minutes from where I live. So I get up in the mornings, and when I do have some opportunity and I do have a small window, I will take a book and I'll go out and I'll sit in the park. I'll lean up against a tree and I'll spend some time outdoors, reflecting, reading, thinking, meditating, just gazing around, looking at the sky. So that's how I tend to engage very much with nature or the outdoors at the moment. And of course, you know, trying to bring nature indoors as well, as you could see from, you know, the office environment in which we work.
So how did that kind of come about as well? What kind of made you feel that indoors, nature should be brought indoors rather than having to go outside to find it? What kind of sparked that kind of, I want to bring this into my workspace and have it around me?
Well, I've always grown up with plants, and you'll know as well, you know, we've always had plants in the house, you know, so I've always had a close affiliation to our near neighbours, the plants, and trees. And I've always looked after and nurtured plants in our houses, in the houses that we've lived in. In my flat now, I've got quite a few plants. And being a lover of nature, of trees, of the entanglement of natural life, I was very keen that we bring some of the outdoors indoors. So last year we had a refurbishment of this office space, and we laid down this lawn. Unfortunately, it's an artificial lawn, but we laid down a lawn in order to bring some greenery into the space. And as soon as the space started to become green, we thought to ourselves, well, you know, why stop there? Let's see if we can bring some more greenery into the space. So we were very blessed. We're supported, our organization is partly supported by the Wimbledon Foundation. And at the end of the tennis championships, they said that they would like to donate some plants to our organization. And that seemed like a blessing to us. And we thought, yes, we'd be very gratefully receive them. And they gave us all these lovely plants that you can see around the place. And we now brought them into our space. And that sparked another idea. And we thought, well, you know, wouldn't it be lovely if we came into the workplace every day and brushed against flowers and plants? And that would perhaps remind us that some of the work that we're doing, whilst it's important and necessary work, it's actually not that important at all, because there are other things that are much more important. The living and breathing environment. Without sustaining that, we won't be able to sustain life. So I think there's something calming, there's something relaxing, there's something meditative about living with plants, about communing with plants. Yesterday we were watering the plants, myself and colleagues in the staff team, and it broke the rhythm of work. You know, normally we're sitting down and typing away on phone calls, and to come away from that and to start to water the plants, nurture the plants, care for the plants, put us into a different calming space. And we're keen to continue to expand it. We've got this North Star idea that we will have a complete botanical garden in this space. Let's get some trees in and actually surround ourselves and envelope ourselves in a garden space within the office, which will no doubt boost our mental capacities, and it will boost our well-being.
It's very important, and it's a very good idea, because I've also been exploring some of how nature can be brought inside. So the reason why I wanted to come down here, as you know, I've started my own initiative called City Girl in Nature. And obviously this journey that I'm on, my connection with nature and the outdoors has enhanced much more now. So I'm now trying to also now engage others, because that's the vision that I'm moving towards. I'm trying to engage other people like me from my community, and I'm on this kind of quest of trying to engage these people into outdoors. And these are some of the ways of which I find is important, not just going outside, but exactly what we're speaking about in the sense of bringing it inside. So in that sense, there's also other ways. I see that you've got this amazing indoor kind of space, but there's also other things that can enhance even the botanical garden and the journey of this. And that would be, for instance, even nature sounds, having like a sound playlist that imitates, has rain sounds, has animal sounds that can also bring nature inside also. The tones, the earthly tones as well, so like how there's paint around the walls and stuff, having earthly tones in this space as well to kind of enhance whatever feel and look you're going for, but enhancing that kind of outdoors, indoors feeling.
No, thank you for those insights. I think you're absolutely right. I think colour matters. So when you look around and you have those, you talk about tones that we visually see. I think sounds matter. I really like the idea of having rainforest, crickets going in the background, and natural sounds. And I think colour, light as well. Light makes a huge difference to our well-being. So I think the idea of mixing natural life with the natural light and colour and tones of the outdoors, without doubt, I have no doubt in my mind about this, is going to improve your well-being, improve your health, improve your interactions with others. So thank you for those insights. I think we're going to look at these colours again, and as our botanical garden grows, the idea of having a soundtrack going on in the background of natural sounds and noises is something that we'll definitely start to pipe into this space. So yes, that's something for us to look forward to.
So do you know or have an idea of how other people, families, can engage in the outdoors and nature. So other parents out there or other children that might want to do things with their parents, do you have an idea of what they could do together?
Yeah, well, I've been thinking about this for a while. You know, in the work that we do around families and parents and young people, I think there's a lot of value in parents, you know, fathers and sons, for example, for them to go out and spend time together out in the natural environment. A lot of the times, the engagements that we have with each other, we have them in often very urban and tense environments. Sometimes our houses are very small. We're confined in very small concrete blocks. We move from one concrete block to another concrete block, walking down concrete streets. And often that creates a tension and a stress level, which makes it very difficult for us to often relax and be our natural selves. And I think there's a real opportunity for everybody, but I think sometimes people who are struggling with relationships, for them to take themselves out of these kind of urban, stressful environments and go to a place of nature and beauty and calmness and stillness, which has a different kind of energy. And for them then to have conversations as fathers and sons and mothers and daughters and families. And I think that the energy of the plants, of the trees, of the sun, of the earth, of the soil can help to loosen some of the stress and some of the tension and lead to perhaps a more natural type of conversation that you could have with your families, with your friends, which can only aid better communication. So I think there is a space for us to do much more of that as a kind of healing and therapeutic approach to well-being. I also think that there's an opportunity where a lot of the diaspora communities in here, diaspora is kind of global communities. So even though my parents are here from as first generation immigrants from Pakistan, a lot of their relationships and their history and their memory is still in Pakistan. And of course, we've also got family in other parts of the world. Collectively, that's called a diaspora, a Pakistani diaspora. And of course, we've got a Caribbean diaspora. Some live here in London, some live in Birmingham, some live in New York, some live in the Caribbean. A lot of these communities, these diaspora communities, come from rural agricultural backgrounds. Just like when I talk about my family being from a farming background, also Caribbean communities and African communities come from farming, agricultural, rural backgrounds. And I think that they would have naturally learned a connection with the environment, living off the earth. But when we all came to the UK, very, very quickly, we lost those skills and those energies, because when we wanted something, we now go to Tesco's and we go to Sainsbury's. When in Africa and in India and in the Caribbean, we'd go to the market and the farmer would have just dug it up earlier in the morning. And sometimes, and quite often, we'd actually grow half of the food in our own backyard. Now it's go to the supermarket and get it all packed and processed. I think we've lost something in that. And I think that there's an opportunity for young people in our community, for older people in our communities to reconnect with the things that they've lost. And also for them then to pass on to the younger people this legacy of connection with earth, connection with the produce from the earth, connecting with natural things and remedies. I think there's been a disconnect, particularly with diaspora communities and younger people, second, third and fourth generation. And I think there's a real opportunity for us to begin to reconnect, rejoin, re-synergize, and repurpose our relationship with the natural environment.